You dream of having more time, just one extra day a week, or maybe even just an extra hour or two, so you can actually do the work that matters. Here's what nobody's telling you. For most freelancers and small business owners, more free time makes your productivity worse, not better. And by the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly why, and you will have a one-day experiment that will keep you from falling into this trap, or if you're in there, it'll get you out of it. Hi, I'm Janae. I'm from Productivity Stacks. We are an evidence-based productivity channel for freelancers and small business owners. I've spent over a decade coaching people just like you to work with your brain, not against it. Subscribe if that sounds useful. Let's get into it. Oh, and there's a free tool in the description if you just want to jump straight to the action items. Totally get it, but I think really understanding the background and why this works and what to look for is key to getting the most out of this trick, so please stay with me if you want the full picture. Here's what's actually happening, and it actually has a name. It might even be a name you've heard. In 1955, a British historian named Parkinson wrote a satirical essay for The Economist. He was roasting government bureaucracy, and he threw in a one line, almost as a joke. Work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. Yeah, guys, that's right, it was a joke, not a science paper. He was mocking civil servants who created busy work just to stay occupied, but researchers tested the underlying idea and found that the joke is kind of on all of us because it turns out it holds up way beyond government offices. Give people more unstructured time and the work doesn't get done faster, it just spreads to fill whatever space you give it. So when your slow season finally arrives and somehow nothing gets done, that's not a you problem. That's Parkinson's law doing exactly what it does. But that's not a very helpful explanation. What's really going on and how can we stop it more importantly? I watched this recently play out with a client of mine. She'd been building her YouTube channel around a full-time job for years, exhausting, filming on the weekends, late nights, just making it work in the time that she could. She was tired and she had that dream of building the channel to replace her income and finally go all in. And she did it, which was awesome. But something really unexpected happened once she got there. Her output dropped. She thought she would finally have all this time to increase her video output and still have room to spare, but that's not what happened. She was getting way less done with a full open calendar than she ever had with a packed one. She was feeling so defeated and really confused. She thought something must be wrong with her, but nothing was wrong with her. The structure that her old job had accidentally provided, those hard stops, the forced deadlines, the boundary of a commute, had been doing work she didn't even know it was doing. When the structure disappeared, everything expanded to fill that space. So you remember that I said unstructured time is what expands. So is the solution to just add things to our calendar? Actually, no. That doesn't work for a lot of people without this step first. You just need 2 timers, that's it. Now, you may have heard productivity experts tell you to use a timer, but not this way, promise. Timer 1 is our work timer. Clock in when you start work, clock out when you actually stop. And I really mean stop. So if you imagine that you worked an office job that worked on a clock in, clock out schedule, what would your boss expect you to clock out for? For example, you go to do laundry, clock out. Grocery run, clock out. But if you're running to the bathroom, you probably wouldn't be clocking out for that, right? What about some gray areas? Things we all probably would do. Maybe making a personal call. You might just head to the bathroom for a minute, right? You're not gonna clock out. So stay clocked in. The rule is simple. If you wouldn't have to clock out for it a regular job or wouldn't, keep the timer running, and if you would, stop it. Timer 2 is gonna be your impact timer. This one only runs when you're doing your chosen impact activity. So side note here, if you've tried using a timer before and you tried to time everything, it can be exhausting. And if you're able to time additional things individually, that's awesome. But I coach a lot of people who get basically timer burnout pretty quickly trying to do this, so I'd advise just sticking with your chosen impact activity the first go. Now, when I ran this experiment on myself, I was actually a freelance translator and my impact activity was billable hours. I wanted to know how much time I was spending actually translating. For you, it might also be client work, or maybe it's content creation, business development, working on your business instead of in it. Whatever work makes the biggest difference in your business right now, or that you just really care about knowing the answer to this question about that right now. Run both throughout your day. At the end, subtract. You're gonna have 3 total times, okay? The time you clocked in for the very first time until the time you clocked out for the very last time. Then within that, the time on the work timer, and then within that, the time on your impact timer. Make sense? I'll give you my numbers as an example so you can see what I mean. Now, if your first reaction to all of this is, oh my gosh, you told me to use a timer, so annoying, it's gonna be so awful to start and stop those timers, good. That reaction is really important, and it's actually this strategy working in your favor. I'm gonna explain exactly why in a minute, but let me get to my numbers and get ready, they're embarrassing. Okay, I ran this experiment on myself way before coaching, before any of this, because you guys, I was grinding through what felt like brutal days and I just wasn't sure I could carry on. So I considered getting a full-time job and leaving the industry completely. I started at 7 a.m., sent my last project through at 9 p.m. I was wrecked. I was telling myself, nope, can't keep doing this. 14-hour days suck. So yeah. And then what did the timers say? The hours that I actually spent translating. You know what? Pause the video for just a second and say out loud or even comment below what you think my impact timer was gonna say, just for fun. Okay, if you're back, it was 4 hours, 4, out of what felt like 14. I stared at it in just utter disbelief and embarrassment. I mean, come on, how do you work all day, exhausted, and end up with 4 hours of real output? I was tired, super tired. And that's exactly the right question because it's what most productivity advice just totally misses. One timer would have shown me 9 hours worked. Those 2 timers and the differences between all 3 times showed me the truth. But the gap between the total hours worked and the actual impact hours, it exists for everybody. And almost no one is measuring it. And if you've ever felt like sometimes your days are crazy productive and sometimes a freaking just slog fest, let's be honest, time might not be the only resource you should be looking at. And I have a whole video on that too. The link to that is going to be in the description. Here's why the gap is almost always bigger than people expect. When you own your own schedule, the boundary between work and everything else starts to collapse. The laundry doesn't feel like stopping work, it feels like multitasking. The grocery run feels like freedom, the errand, the personal call, all of it starts to bleed into the workday because there's nothing structural stopping it, and it might even feel like productivity. Oh, look at all this stuff I'm getting done. I got my grocery run done. And every single time this happens, you pay a hidden cost that doesn't show up on the clock. Research on task switching consistently finds that every time you redirect your attention from one thing to another, there is a real cognitive overhead, a cost that you pay just to get back up to speed to what you were doing before, and it's not imaginary. Research on interrupted work found something that explains the exhaustion piece even better. Fragmented days cost more effort and take a bigger psychological toll even when the work gets done, which is crazy. And it's exactly why an interrupted, scattered 9 hours felt like 14 to me. It's the measurable cost of fragmentation accumulating across every single switch, every single interruption, every single time you step away and come back, especially when they're not even intentional. And we're not talking about a lunch break here. We're not talking about a normal intentional break. So remember when I said that if running 2 timers sounds annoying, that's actually good and the strategy working in your favor? Here's what I meant. There are 2 ways that this affects you beyond just getting the data. First, we're gonna call it the self-monitoring effect. Research on self-monitoring consistently finds that the act of tracking itself changes behavior. People eat better when they log their food. They move more when they wear a step counter. So we're more likely to use our time better when we track it. The awareness alone shifts the behavior. So the second one is what I'm gonna name the annoyance avoidance effect. I came up with that to make it simple. It's not in research papers that I know of. Here's what I mean by this. If you're someone who bounces between tasks constantly, running 2 timers is gonna be really irritating. You're gonna have to stop and start it constantly, check email for 5 minutes, back to client work for 4 minutes, jump to LinkedIn for 20. And here's what happens. You start batching things together just to avoid the frustration of freaking starting that stupid timer. You stop switching so much because the timer makes every switch visible and annoying. This means that this strategy is not just collecting data. Both of these things are already having an actual impact. So how is this different and what's the standard fix for Parkinson's law? Well, most productivity advice will tell you to add structure, set artificial deadlines, time block your calendar, and honestly, that is not wrong. If you're someone who responds really well to self-imposed deadlines, if you open your calendar and actually follow it block by block, time blocking really works. It works really, really well. But if you have tried that and the block time just kind of sits there ignored, or you blow past your own deadlines because who's gonna stop you? You're not broken at all. You just aren't at the stage of trusting a system like that yet. And that's a lot of people because time blocking is an intervention and it's often applied to the wrong diagnosis. Productivity strategies are kind of like medicine. Like, sure, antibiotics work, but not if you sprained your ankle. Same thing here. Let's not apply the wrong productivity strategy to the wrong diagnosis. So here's the really great thing about the 2-timer strategy. They don't require you to stick to a schedule. They just require you to measure what actually happened. And measurement comes first because how are you gonna fix something if you have no idea what's happening and you can't see it? And hey, if time blocking is already working for you, please keep doing it. Just run the 2 timers alongside it and you're gonna get even better data. If it hasn't worked, the 2 timers are probably the better solution for you for your productivity diagnosis. So what happened to my YouTube client? She didn't go back to her old job. She built the structure the job had been providing for free. Protected windows for filming, hard stops on her calendar, clear boundaries around what counted as work and what didn't, and her output came back. Within a few weeks, she was producing far more than she ever had, not because she finally had enough time, but because she was being honest about what was happening and working with her brain, not against it. She developed the awareness and then executed a plan to fix it. And here's what I want you to take from that. My story and her story are actually the same. One of us, was overworked and one was underworked, but we were also both unstructured and both letting time run us instead of us choosing what time was gonna be for what. So understanding the reality of where we were is what allowed the right diagnosis and therefore the right solution instead of trying to force a square peg into a round hole. We all have an invisible gap between hours worked and hours that actually mattered. The gap is never going to be 0, but it also doesn't have to be the size of the Grand Canyon either. And I've seen it with myself and nearly every client who comes to me convinced that they just need more time after this launch, after this busy season. More time is not the prescription, the visibility is. And remember, you don't need a month of data to learn something real. You don't even need a week. One day is going to show you something. The more detailed that you can make that impact timer, the better. But if all you track is that one impact activity, you're still gonna get some great data points. If all you can do is track the one activity, do that. If you can track how long you were emailing and on LinkedIn and all of that, of course it's gonna be a lot better. It might show you that email is eating twice what you thought. It might show you, like it showed me, that the gap between how long your day feels and then how much impact you actually created is a lot bigger than you ever could have imagined. So one day, 2 timers, that is the whole entire ask. And hey, if you can do it for a week or even a month instead, you're gonna start seeing patterns. That's when you have real information to make decisions. But just start with one day. The better season that you've been waiting for might come. I really hope it does. I really, really do. But if the structure and understanding isn't there when it arrives, that time is going to fill up with something. It always does. Parkinson figured this out in 1955, making fun of bureaucrats, and I've watched it be true with every single client who finally gets that open calendar that they've been waiting for, including one who built a whole YouTube channel around a dream of having more time, only to find that time alone wasn't what she thought it would be. More time is often not the fix. Seeing your day clearly is the fix. I've linked the timers I use in the description, but you can use any timers you like, and that free tool I mentioned is down there to help you too. Please drop a comment if you're going to try this. You don't have to share your numbers unless you want to. I would totally be interested to hear, but just tell me you're doing it. I can't wait to see. Subscribe if this was useful. And the next time you're sitting at the end of an exhausting day wondering where it all went, now you know exactly how to find out. I'll see you in the next video.